I'm Linda Gentis. I'm a county board supervisor, and as such, I'm on the committee for the campus, which is called the Richland County Education Standing Committee. We basically are in charge of the buildings here and also have a directive to guide the area for an educational and cultural center. And I am joined tonight by Sean Murphy Lopez. Sean is the vice chair of the Richland County County Board of Supervisors. He's also on the Education Committee. We have one other person from the Education Committee here. I saw her, Barb Voice is here in the back. The Education Committee will be making the decisions finally on this and putting them toward the county board, who would make our final decisions on what would happen if we finally get a negotiation with them. So we're going to start tonight by sort of going back to November 22nd and sort of following you up on that, and then we're going to present to you the recent plan that we presented to them, and then we're going to answer questions because there's a lot of rumors out there, and you know, things are a little bit of an impasse right now, but that's why we needed to be vocal at the moment and speak out and make sure the community knows what's going on and you can be a part of it. Okay, John?
Thanks, Linda. So, like Linda mentioned, I'm just going to run through the process just to remind folks of the different steps that have happened along the way so far and to let you know where we're going past tonight. So, the process started just before November when UW System President Jay Rothman, who's right here, issued...
Can you hear him? You want lights?
Could you dim them?
Oh, more dim?
I'd like it.
I don't know if someone can dim the lights a little bit. That
They
might...
dim the lights, I'll go to sleep.
No? A little disagreement, so we'll just see how it works. Is that okay? Is that better? Okay.
Another bank?
No, that,
If you were my students, you'd all be asleep by now.
Maybe one more light on, just somewhere in the middle. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So Mr. Rothman issued a directive to UW-Platteville to end in-person instruction at UW-Richland as of June 30th, and to come up with a plan for what the presence of the UW system should be on this campus. And they directed UW-Platteville to come up with what that transition plan would look like. So that's what happened right before November. Obviously, a lot of us were very upset by that, and we started organizing. There are so many people who have made so many of these steps happen, and they're not going to be on these slides. It has taken hundreds and hundreds of people in the local community to make all of these things happen. But one major step that we took in December was that the students organized. And the students went to the Board of Regents meeting in December in Madison. They not only met with Mr. Rothman, but they met with individual Board of Regents members. One student, Brody Smith, right in the back there in the red t-shirt, stopped and talked to the governor and gave him a petition that the community had signed, telling him that we wanted an in-person meeting to share our ideas about how to save the campus. And they also met with many members of the media, and there were a lot of stories that came out of that December meeting. Also in December, the county board passed a resolution on an 18-0 roll call vote, and that was to take a position on the campus. So there were a lot of details in here, but it called for things like a recruiter. It called for a mediator to be present if UW-Platteville staff were present at any meeting with Richland County in the room. And it really set out just a base level expectation that the county board supports this campus, and they want this to be an educational institution. I'm paraphrasing and summarizing. This was a few pages long. Then in January, oh yeah, we've got someone famous in the crowd here who led the charge at this listening session. So Mr. Markline and Mr. Kurtz from the state legislature held a listening session in Richland Center. It was a normally scheduled one. It wasn't, set up just for the campus, but I would say roughly 100 people showed up, and that dominated the entire listening session. We had a lot of great speakers there, and we saw a lot of great support. And at that meeting, we announced, I believe, that we were having a town hall meeting, and we wanted Mr. Markline and Mr. Kurtz and Mr. Rothman and the governor to come and talk with the community at a town hall meeting just about the campus. And as a result, that town hall meeting happened in January. As you can see in the right-hand portion of the photo, Mr. Markline and Mr. Kurtz did come. We had about 125 people at this meeting. And this was a meeting where really the community could share their ideas for what we could do with the campus. Yes, there were some grievances aired, and a lot of us have a lot of those. And but we also shared some positive ideas, and that was a helpful meeting. Mr. Kurtz did speak at this meeting and gave us some of the realities of what was his perspective of trying to argue to the legislature to fund the campus next year. So we heard some of that. We also had information in pretty great detail, and we're not going to go into this tonight because we already went into it. But if someone needs the information, give Linda or I your email address and we'll make sure you get it. We had a lot of background information about the relationship between Richland County and UW system, the contractual relationship. We went through all the buildings. A lot of information was in that presentation. And then in February, we started negotiations with one of Mr. Rothman's vice presidents. I believe he has 4 vice presidents, is how it's set up at UW system. So Jeff Brandt, who's the vice president for university relations, came down here in February. He has come down here 4 times since then, total. And each of those times they brought legal counsel with them as well. And the beginning of the negotiating process was about coming up with a process. Like, why were we negotiating? And so this is a document that we've used internally to say, what is our purpose? Our purpose is to create a plan to revitalize the UW-Richland campus using Richland County Resolution 22-131, passed back in December, and the UW System Transition Plan as a starting point. I mentioned that Rothman had directed Platteville to come up with the transition plan. That was issued on January 15th. So those are our 2 different starting points, the county starting point and the UW system starting point. So now our purpose is to create a plan that uses both of those as starting points. Then the deadline is to, and this has been agreed to, by the way, by Jeff Brandt.
Did you explain who Jeff was?
I did. Yep, Vice President of University Relations. The deadline is to submit a report with recommendations to the Education Committee of the Richland County Board and the UW System President, Jay Rothman, by April 30th. So that's in a little over a month. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings listed here. There were different groups that we're bringing into those 4 meetings to get their input and their ideas. So the first group took place on March 3rd. It took 2 meetings, by the way, to get the process finalized. So we have 6 meetings total. The first meeting where we met with the community was with representatives of high schools. The second meeting was with higher education staff and students. That took place on St. Patrick's Day, a week and a half ago. The next meeting is, it says March 31st here, but it's actually taking place April 7th, is with area business leaders. And then the 4th meeting, which will take place later in April, is with other community leaders. So that's the process. What Linda and I did, and she's going to go ahead and pass out the plan framework that we shared with UW System.
You may have to share this.
You may have to share some of these
Barney, to that
copies.
side.
And then Marilyn's going to put it up on the screen, I believe, if that's okay, so that it's the PDF. That's
Yeah.
correct. So people on Zoom can also see what we're looking at. And again, if you don't get a paper copy, or if you're online and you would like to see an electronic copy of this, just make sure Linda or I gets your email address afterward, and we'll make sure you get a copy. So the reason why we created this document, we're calling this a plan framework. We knew the April 30th deadline was coming up pretty quickly. And we didn't want to get to April 30th and not have
This is the plan.
the main ideas kind of laid out.
Okay, you want to give it to them?
So what the plan does, it doesn't put a lot of text in there. There's no images really. It's just an outline of what Linda and I proposed to UW system staff on March 17th, and which Linda, as the chair of the Education Committee, is going to put on the agenda for the Education Committee to consider later this week, we think.
I have more here, if anybody needs any.
The Education Committee is made up of 8 members of the County Board of Supervisors. So we're going to have them look at this, give their input, and then I'm assuming it might go on to the county board after that. And Mr. Brandt is also taking this to Mr. Rothman, and we're going to get some feedback from Mr. Brandt on this on April 7th at that meeting with the business leaders of the community. So this is meant to have a framework so we can figure out what's going to work, what's not going to work earlier on, so that we can start fleshing it out, so we have something ready by April 30th to present back to the Education Committee of the County Board and to Mr. Rothman. So,
Well, we'll do this, and I'll go through the actual items.
that sounds good. Just stop me when you're ready to jump in. We didn't actually coordinate this part. Yeah, this is great, Marilyn. Okay, so the concept, we actually pulled the concept from an idea from Kathy Sandine, who was on a radio program in December talking about the proposed closing of our campus by Rothman. Even though that's technically not what was proposed, it's how we all feel. She was the former dean of the UW colleges. Chancellor, thank you. And there were 13 UW colleges across the state. So she was in charge of all 13 two-year campuses. And she said that she had a proposal to do several things, and one of them was to use a marketing slogan that was created by a firm in Madison called UW Here, where at these 13 colleges around the state, anyone could come to get their education. You don't have to, drive to Madison or some far-flung place. So we like that idea, so we threw that in here. The concept also is to get your higher education and increase your income in your backyard. And I'll go over what that means under the need. And then we also want to meet the education needs of this rural area for traditional and non-traditional students. So the needs section. So we know that rural people have a lower rate of higher education than urban people. So we just pulled 3 counties that are, I guess you could call in our service area. These are rural places that border Richland County. 17% of residents of Crawford County, and these are people who are 25 and older, by the way, have a 4-year degree. 20% in Richland County and 24% in Vernon County. The average in Wisconsin is about 1/3 of adults, and in the US it's a few percentage points higher. And should I hit one of these buttons to go down, or do I need to get you
I
this?
think I need to do that, and I have to do it. See
Okay.
over here. How far do you want to go?
Yeah, and I can do it too. Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, so the median household incomes in these counties, 56,000 in Richland County, 55 in Crawford, 58 in Vernon County, and that's about 85% of what it is across the state. So our incomes are much lower, and you can see what the US is there, 71,000 for a median household income. And then it actually wasn't working for me, so I might need you to do the scrolling there. I'm sorry. You can just keep going down. So on average, people earn $1,350 a week with a bachelor's degree, $950 a week with an associate's degree, and $800 a week with a high school diploma. So that's about $550 more a week in people's pockets if they get their bachelor's degree. So we don't feel like that's really getting out there enough. You know, like what's the purpose of this campus? And we think UW system could be doing a better job at that too. Letting people know like why go get your education. And it's not all about money. It's also about unemployment. It's about health insurance. There's cultural benefits, but you know, I mean, this is a really basic one. Do you have enough money to feed yourself and your kids and your family? So I think the model then is where I'll hand it off to Linda, right? Okay.
You want to move it down so it's right up?
I just like to say recently, luckily I have a good researcher in Sean. And we've been reading the minutes from the April 2017 meeting when they decided to have the restructuring where all the 2 years would go with a 4-year. If you read those minutes, it exactly says exactly what we've been saying, and it says in there that rural areas should be addressed, that they need to have education, they need all those things, and that they weren't closing anything, and that is the reason everything that he just explained up there is all written in these minutes. So we're reiterating that quite a bit to them. Okay, so it's not exactly, you know, earth-shaking science. We're still going back to some of the basics, and people say you can't go backwards, but we're going backwards and forwards. So what we proposed initially is that we would want at least 3 in-person degree programs. It could be more than that. We'd like to get back to the general education courses. And the number one reason for that, no matter what you want to say, is for the last 50 years at this campus, the majority of the students that entered this campus, their major was undecided. They needed that hands-on general education. They needed someone to guide them, to get them to where they're going, what their talents were, and that's what we excelled at. So we are still telling them that this is what really we do best. In addition to that, we're working with someone locally who's going a K-12 5-semester associate degree certificate program. And hopefully I've heard from DPI a few times, and I'm working with DPI on this. They're trying to figure out what niche it should be, but there is a lack of teachers who are certified to teach in the schools. Now you say, oh yeah, they can have their bachelor's degree and they teach. I don't know if you realize, but all the high schools around here are hiring consultants to teach these people how to teach. They've had no in-service, they've had no training, no pedagogy. They know nothing about how to deal with classrooms or what it is. And that was our original roots, right? We were a teacher's college. That's where we need to be again. That's what the rural areas have more of this problem than anywhere else. So this is what we're hammering on that. The nursing program is a variety of things. Obviously, Southwest Tech does a wonderful job. I've talked to Pine Valley. I've talked to Bruce Racer at the hospital. I realize that most of their nurses are getting their RN there, but they do like to go on for a BSN. We would be in place for that. We're in talks with Viterbo College, where we could maybe be the start for it, and then they would go over there and finish. So we have lots of ideas, and as you might know, UW-Rock is working with Edgewood College and running a very good nursing program with a private college. So we're following all those leads. In addition to that, we really feel there's a strong need because this Driftless area has a whole variety of environmental changes. We have capo farms, we have organic farms, we have forest, we have unique flora and fauna to this area. So we have been researching all the rural educational programs that are across the United States, and we'd like to do a rural environmental program that works with organic, sustainable forestry, maybe have actual work programs where they're working in it. We're having meetings with the business people. Organic Valley is in contact with us, and we're working with them. So there's lots of different balls up in the air here. Dual enrollment. This is something that Jeff Barant and us, they're very interested in that, and we're still very interested in it. We did do that here very well. I will say that UW-Platteville, the faculty did not want to do it, and that got cut off here. And UW system is quite interested in getting that started. So that's one place that we're agreeing on quite well. Again, their directive, and then we're offering a menu of online degree programming with on-site staff and community atmosphere. If you look at the back page of your handout, there is a plethora of online programs across this whole UW system. Now, you could probably go online and just find it, but not every student knows how to do all that. They need someone here that can guide them and get them to it. And there is a lot of programs that they could start here and finish online, working with computers here. And there's just a whole, as you see, it's just a wonderful offering. I will say, they've pretty much admitted to us that the UW system is not that organized. This is our biggest problem, and that's why we might be falling through the cracks. They haven't got it figured out always how to transfer between the schools. They haven't got it figured out exactly how to run all the online and get it out there and get it to the people. And they realize that they really are not doing a good job. They need better leadership. That's all I can say. We offer a reduced rate for all 4 years. The UW colleges have always had that. We serve as a pilot model for turning around declining enrollment at the other 12-year campuses. We feel strongly, because we were dismantled, slowly but surely, that we can show them how it can be done to get the campus back. In addition to that, we are still very interested in an international program. Our community has been so welcoming to that, and we feel that that is part of the heart of this campus. So those are a variety of those programs. I think that's the basic model. I mean, we have a lot more ideas, but there. So want to go from there? Yeah, please. Okay, you want to talk about the funding?
Oh, then continuing education.
Oh, yeah. How could I forget continuing education? There's a whole bunch of ideas for continuing education. As you know, we have several international people living right across the way in our residence halls. We are in contact with Cardinal Glass. We're in contact with Foremost Farms, Schreiber's. And they have a lot of internationals, and they have both indicated that they would like to have evening and courses for learning English and learning cultural things here, and business acumen of how the business functions. So we think we could have a highly run evening continuing education program for that. In addition to that, if we would have the education program here on campus for teachers, we want to place them in schools right away with their student teaching from the first semester on, and the continuing education person, knowing the community and be very much in contact, would run those placements and also work programs for the environment. So we figured out how this could function, that in addition to hopefully having love of learning lectures and other good things of that enrich our lives as living here in this community. Okay, now funding, important.
Thanks. Okay, so we've been learning about a lot of especially federal funding programs, and sometimes it's because we're missing deadlines and they're going past us, but we're noticing, oh, that would have worked really well for the campus had we had an agreement in place with UW system. So I'm just going to talk about two of them. The first is the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture Rural Development Community Facilities Grant. Most of these monies are actually given out through congressionally directed spending. Those are also known as earmarks or appropriations. So things like the Lafayette County Hospital just got built with something, or just got funded through something like that. There's some projects happening in Viola regarding getting development up out of the floodplain. In Viroqua regarding a city hall. So I think, and I think the hospital, there's interest from the hospital here in Richland Center for getting funding related to that. So I think we just need to be more aware of it. We need to do a better job at bringing in some of that federal funding. And it's because of that USDA designation that we're a rural community that really opens up a lot of possibilities for us. So that's one thing we want to be looking at here as we come up with a plan. You know, what would we do over the next year or two? What pots of money would we go after? There's also a rural development distance learning grant that UW system could apply for. So we own the building, so we might have to go after a community facilities grant, but they could go after something as far as technology goes, which they're in charge of in the buildings. We're not in charge of the technology at the county. Obviously, Richland County already makes regular investments in these buildings. We've done it annually. We've had bigger pots of money go out over the past several decades. Science Hall is probably the biggest example of how the county has helped to fund improvements here with that refurbished building in the early aughts. Obviously, the County Campus Foundation is a big player. They have already given lots of money to this campus, so they're a potential source. And then coming to the community and alumni for a fundraising campaign. Most of these, especially federal pots, not all of them, but most of them require some sort of a match. And so we have to figure out how can we triple or quadruple or quintuple our money, if it's an 80-20 match or whatever it is. So the transition,
Pipe in if you want. Anytime.
We'll do.
Okay, so the transition, this is our ideas. Utilities and maintenance remain with UW system, that's in our memo of understanding. And the equipment, okay, I'm gonna stop with that. And also, I don't think we wrote on here, technical support, but that should be part of that. It's in the staff plan, yeah. We're being transparent here tonight. At our last meeting, that is what we directly asked on July 1, exactly who is going to be here to do the maintenance and the technical support. And we wanted an answer. And we did not get an answer. And at that point, we are here tonight. It says no resources and they can't answer at this time. They will get back to us by April 7th. We are making several demands for the April 7th meeting of what we need to know, and that will be a major part of that. So it's time, we can't wait till April 30th to write this agreement. We're trying to write it now. Okay. Equipment and materials remain at UW-Richland. They have said that it will remain here, right, Sean? Yeah.
Through June 30th.
Through June
Yes,
30th.
there will be nothing
There's
happening.
nothing removed, but right now they keep saying that that's not going to happen, but we're not sure, so that's what we'll keep hammering to. East Hall management and utilities. Okay, that is not really being taken over by the Richland School District. The East Hall, as of today, our legal counselor, we have removed East Hall from our agreement with the memo of understanding. It has been a part of the campus in some points, but has never been an integral part of all the buildings and what we've been using. We have other people who've showed a direct interest in this, and it will be going to the Public Works Committee, and as of April 1, the extension will be moving out, and we will be selling it or renting it to sell. It is not going to be given away, as the rumor has been out there. So the Public Works and Marty Brewer, our chair, will be guiding that very well because he's been working with me on that all along. Okay, we don't know if Extension's moving to Melville Hall. They might be moving to Health and Human Services. The Melville Hall, Miller Library, Science Hall, Wallace Student Center are remodeled by Richland County. Those all need some upgrades, and that's what we'd be going after this money for, to work on our boilers and our HVAC systems. The UW system, though, would upgrade the technology and furnishings in Melville Hall, the Miller Library, Science Hall, and Wallace Student Center. We do have smart rooms in the science building, but some of them need to be updated, and we need more smart rooms for teaching. The gymnasium, the outdoor courts, the soccer field management, we have just gentleman's agreement, ladies' agreement, what do they call it now, person's agreement, that they would like, the high school would like to use those facilities. We would not take them out of our agreement, we would still own them, but they need more space for the middle school students to have the gym, the soccer fields they're already been using, and the tennis courts and pickleball courts, hopefully they would utilize that too. They may also work some with Simon's Recreation Complex on the use of the gymnasium, but we would have them utilize that. The tillable acres behind and the woods will be taken out and removed from the agreement, and Richland County will work on having a park. We may have some development. We have talked a lot about a small house eco-friendly area. We've got a lot of ideas that we think might benefit the community, so we'll be working on those things. The office and classroom space. Oh, the classroom building, this is my idea. I think it could be eventually be a residence hall. I think there's potential there. That's, not everybody agrees with me on that one. We'll go from there. The office and classroom space in the Wallace Student Center offered to Southwest Technical College. Now, the rumor out there all along is that Southwest Tech is going to be taking over the buildings in the campus. Marty Brewer and I have met with Jason Woods, who is the president of Southwest Tech. He's a wonderful gentleman. He's running a wonderful program at Fenimore. I'm just so impressed with it. They have offices down the street here. They are doing things at the high schools. They're doing things also with a couple of the businesses in town. At the moment, they have no resources to take over and run this campus. That is total false rumor out there that that is going to happen. So we wanted to stop that rumor tonight. I will say that Jeff Barant from UW System and myself and Jason Woods in the next week, he sent an email or so, we are going to have a private meeting again to talk about maybe some things that could be done. But Jason Woods, who's an honorable person, has repeatedly, in emails and in person, said, please don't count on us for this. So even though Washington County and some others which have their facilities next door to each other are doing some combining of programming, I do not see this as a possibility here.
Can I just add one thing, Linda?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add with the transition plan, those are Linda's and I's ideas. We personally have negotiated over them. We have listened to a lot of people in the community. We've listened to county board members. We've listened to staff who are here on the campus. We've listened to just the people. And we have put together what we think is a good starting point for a transition. And all those ideas laid out there, it doesn't mean that those things will happen or that they have to happen. We're laying out those ideas. We're proposing them to UW System. We're getting reactions from the Education Committee. That's going to be coming up probably later this week. We'll be getting reactions from the county board, I'm assuming. So it's about putting those ideas out there in paper, not just throwing out 200 ideas anymore, but starting to boil them down. We want to hear your questions about them too. We might not have all the answers, but I just want to clarify that those are ideas from Linda and I at this point, so we can get the ball rolling, so we can get a plan by April 30th.
You want to do the staffing?
I can.
Okay, so we also realize that this is the end of March, and they've already stopped, UW system stopped taking enrollments for next year. And really, we've got to figure out, if we are going to revitalize this campus, how are we realistically going to do it? So Linda especially helped me with this. I think I threw a first draft together and she tore it all apart because I had all the titles wrong because I'm not a higher education expert. But we came up with a 3-phased approach for a staffing plan. So phase 1 of our staffing plan, if you don't mind just rolling down just a little bit more, we might be able to see the total at the bottom of the chart. Yep, that's perfect. Maybe just one more roll up. Might get both of them on there. There, that's great. Thank you. So phase 1 has almost 6 full-time equivalent staff. Phase 2, which would start in the second semester, if there were a second semester, in the next academic year, would have 7.5 staff. And then phase 3 is what we're envisioning as the campus really operating again. And that would have 11 staff. And this doesn't include faculty, it just includes like what are the basic support staff that you would need to run a campus. And sometimes they're not the support, sometimes they're the lead. So we've got on here thinking that from the beginning, we really need a dean or a program planner or some sort of person who's really going to lead the effort. And they need to be full-time, figuring out how all this is going to work. A student services director, food service, those would be the other full-time related staff. And then we have some other half-time staff mixed in here. So a recruiter from the beginning, a maintenance manager to take care of the buildings, using the county's money that we contribute and have always contributed, and then a marketing and communication specialist and technology support. And then as time goes by and we, in this vision, when we start ramping stuff back up, those staff would increase in amounts as students come back to the campus. So I think that is. Linda was just asking if I was going to talk about legislators. We didn't put it in any of our materials, but we are talking about how will we directly advocate for ourselves in Madison with the decision makers. So the legislators primarily, and then of course the governor. Those are the two.
Explain the budget once more. Not everybody might know. I mean, they might know about that.
Oh, Linda's asking me to explain the budgeting process. So I believe maybe we had this in our previous presentation that we gave in January here. The budgeting process has already begun. It actually began last fall when every department or division of the state government submitted their budget request to the governor. So that includes UW system. They were one of those departments. The governor then turned around and took all those requests and he submitted his recommended budget to the state legislature. I believe that was in January, just a couple months ago, less than 2 months ago. Now the state legislature, led by the Joint Finance Committee, which makes up members of both the Assembly and the State Senate, they are holding, I believe, listening sessions around the state, and they're going to be putting together their recommended budget, and they're going to be sending their budget back to the governor for his signature or veto, and or line item vetoes. So we are advocating, we would like, I should say, to advocate for UW-Richland and for this plan, or whatever this plan evolves into, based on the feedback that we get from you folks, from the education committee, from the system president. We would like to advocate for this plan at the legislature.
A line item.
Yes, a line item in the budget, Linda's saying. And I think, part of the reason for this is because the contract that the county has with UW system says that the continuation of this campus every year depends on 2 conditions. And imagine this as like, I kept thinking of it this week, like you tell you tell your kid before they go to bed, you gotta have this and this done, or probably a better way is before you can go out, you gotta have A and B done. And it's like this in the contract. It says, A, the legislature changes the nature of the branch campus program through legislation. That's one way. A. B is the appropriations change. Now, I've read the state statute. The legislature gives broad authority to the system president to figure out how to appropriate those monies. But that's why we're looking at the budget as a potential solution, as a line item. That's challenging, as we heard from Representative Kurtz back in January, but we're going to keep advocating and keep listening. But also, we really think, when you look at that contract, the state legislature, in my personal opinion, they need to get involved. They need to decide what they want to do here too. Is it fair to a campus, any campus, and there's probably going to be another campus next, to get 6 months notice and say, sorry about the millions of dollars you've invested over the past 5 decades, we're out of here. Is that really a fair thing to a community to do that to them? So anyway, we'll be having some upcoming meetings. That's just my commentary on it. I'm sure others have their thoughts on it.
Yeah.
We're going to need to start organizing
That's our
around
next big push.
Our next strong initiative is that we'll be working on.